Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to get everybody's attention so we can begin the presentation today. And my name is Gerald Cleveland. I'm with the Health Promotion and Wellness Program. I'm joined today by Patrice Houston over here to my right, Julie Dial to my left, and together we make up the Health Promotion and Wellness team. So one of the things that we wanted to do today, again, was promote our physical activity. You've got information on the table, and we can answer any questions that you may have. But we're very, very happy to have Dr. Alok Kalyé back with us today to speak food addiction and weight management, the elephant in the room. And so it's a topic that we really feel is I think becoming more mainstream these days, and a lot of it thankful to the research that Dr. Kalyé has initiated, and we really do feel like that his innovation is one of the things that make his approach probably more unique than just about anything else that we've seen. So we really not only appreciate your willingness to come, but your knowledge that you're going to share with us today. Make sure all those cell phones are on stun. Give Dr. Kalyé your undivided attention. He's going to leave some time at the end for questions. And if you have any questions for us after the seminar, we're more than happy to answer them. So without further ado, Dr. Kalyé, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Gerald. Can all of you hear me? Yes. Thanks. Any research done by me and by Dr. Karen Smith at this institution. So she's my associate in any research that we do in this area. Well, good afternoon, and we're going to have some fun. I'm going to keep it casual. I always do. We should have at least 10 minutes for questions, depending on how much I ramble, and we'll see. So, food can be, as far as health is concerned, is both toxin and treatment, right? Our food choices can make the difference between a healthy and a long life and an unhealthy and a shorter life. And if you think about it, obesity is a chronic disease in which the patient is also the doctor. Only you can decide what you're going to eat. Nobody else can do it for you. Which means that the question you have to ask at each meal is this: is this food I'm about to eat toxin or treatment? And, clearly many of us are intoxicated. 2/3 of all adults in the USA, and may I say in this room, are overweight. Okay? That's 150 million people in this country. And you all know that, being overweight has issues. I won't go into that. And the funny thing is that so many of us, including me, are overweight in spite of the fact that we know exactly what to do to lose weight. Right? If that's where I am, I can't point at all the screen at the same time. So that's where I am, and that's where I need to be. I have to do two things. What are the two things, folks, that we have to do to lose weight? Tell me. You right? Yeah. And they say if you do that, you'll get from there to there. The problem is, it doesn't seem to work for so many of us. Every single overweight person knows this mantra, right? But it doesn't seem to work, right? How many of you have been on a diet? Anybody? Yeah. Being on a diet is like holding on to a tightly coiled spring. The pressure of your fingers is your self-control, and the back pressure of the spring are your cravings. And springs are tricky. You make one little mistake, and that's the end of the diet. Most diets don't work for most. They work for some, but most diets don't work for most people in the long run, because diets assume that overeating is the cause of obesity, that you're fat because you're eating too much or eating the wrong things. And I'm telling you, overeating is not the real problem. I'm a pretty smart guy. I've been a physician at UTMB for 37 years. I know biochemistry, I know physiology. I still could be thinner than I am. if all I had to do to lose some more weight was to eat less, what's stopping me? What's stopping anybody? None of us likes to be heavy. So overeating is not the problem. What is making me overeat? What makes me go for that cookie in that corner? I saw you. You know, that's where the answer lies, and that's what we're going to look at today. Okay. So we're going to ask two questions. The first is, why do we gain weight? Why do we get fat in the first place? And the second question is, why do we regain weight? Now, those of you who've been on a diet, I bet you most of you lost some weight. But as the months went by, you gained it back. So those are the two questions that we're going to address today. So why do we gain weight? Now, many people will tell you that if you eat 20 calories a day more than you use day after day, you will gain weight. And these people say that the reason this is happening is because we have so much high-calorie, tasty food around, and without thinking about it, we eat it. It's there, it's tasty, and we eat it. But that can't be the answer. If it was, if eating right was just a matter of making the right food choices, in other words, if the food was out there, and if someone says, you're gaining too much weight, don't eat that stuff. If that is all that was necessary, then all we would need is a food list that says, eat this, not that. How many of you have gone to a dietitian and they give you a list? Eat this, buy a diet book at the back. Eat this, not that. But you know what? But lists don't translate into making the right choice. Actually, you can give me all the lists you want. But something else is going on. Right? So that brings up a very simple but interesting question. Why do we eat? What is the number one stimulus that makes us find food and eat it? Anyone? Hunger! Of course, hunger. Right? Now, so I'm hungry and I go there and I pick up my little food box and I have the whole salad and I'm full. Then I go get the cookie. I'm not hungry. What is that? That ain't hunger. What is that? Craving. Desire. We eat for hunger and we eat for desire. Now we also eat when we are stressed. You all know that. When we are lonely, when we are at a party. But we eat when we are not stressed and not lonely and not at a party too. Those are secondary reasons for eating. These two are hardwired into our system. They are both completely normal, but they have entirely different functions. So let's talk about them. Hunger. Hunger is actually very interesting. When the stomach is empty, it makes a chemical or a hormone called ghrelin. And it puts the ghrelin into the blood, and the ghrelin goes to the brain, and it says, hey, his stomach is empty, do something. And the brain says, okay, I'm going to make him hungry. And it does. And when I'm hungry enough, I go find some food. When I find the food and I start eating, and the first 5 or 10 bites of food are in my stomach says, oh, thank you, he's eating now, I can stop making ghrelin. It doesn't wait to be full. Okay? But it takes at least 15 to 20 minutes for the level of ghrelin in your blood to come down enough that hunger goes away. So if you suck your food down in 10 minutes, you may have a full stomach, but you're going to keep eating because the hunger hormone level is still high. But if you put even a small amount of food on your plate and you stretch it out over 15 to 20 minutes, or if you don't take a second helping till 15 to 20 minutes have gone by, you'll find that the need for the second helping has gradually disappeared. The feeling of satiety, the feeling of satisfaction that comes once you start eating has less to do with the amount of food in your stomach and more to do with the number of minutes that have gone by since you took the first bite. And I can prove this to you. How many of you have gone to a restaurant and you order the appetizer and then the entree is delayed, and by the time the entree comes, you're not hungry anymore, right? How come? All you had was the appetizer. It's the time factor. It's not the amount, it's the time. That's hunger. Now, I call it the 50-minute rule. The goal of hunger seems to be to make sure that you replace today the calories that you used yesterday. To make sure that your paycheck is meeting your expenses. But if you live from paycheck to paycheck, you never have any money to put in the bank. And if the paycheck stops coming, you're up the creek. Right? And so for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, living from paycheck to paycheck as far as food was concerned was not a good survival strategy, because you know what? These guys ate whatever nature gave them, which meant the food supply went up and down with the season. So if you're a Comanche or a Sioux living in Kansas or Nebraska, summer and early fall were good eating times. I mean, the roots are big and the fruits are ripe and the deer and the antelope are playing and doing well. And suddenly it's winter and there's 6 feet of snow on the ground and food is hard to find. So to survive the winter, one had to put on some fat when extra calories were available. But eating for hunger will not make you fat. That's only a replacement strategy. To make some fat in the summer so that you can survive the winter, we had to overeat. We had to eat even if not hungry. We had to pig out. Now what kinds of food makes you pig out? Tasty food, right? We are programmed to find high-calorie foods tasty. The body's motto seems to be, never walk by a plate of high-calorie food without having some. Because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Right? So let's talk about food. The three major components of food are protein and fat and carbs. Now eating protein won't make you fat. Some people say they do, I don't believe it, okay? Eating fat can make you fat, eating carbs can make you fat. Fat has twice as many calories per ounce as carbs. So clearly, we should be programmed to crave fats. But if you think about it, human beings do not crave fat by itself. We just don't. When was the last time any of you slunk into the kitchen when no one was looking and chugged a bottle of oil? How many of you had lard for breakfast? We don't seem to crave fat by itself. We crave carbs, no question. We don't even have taste buds for fat. We have sweet, sour, salt, bitter, and Food Network watches. What's the fifth taste? Umami, the savory taste. There's no taste buds for fat. Okay? But we use fat as a flavor enhancer. If you cook anything, especially a carb in fat, it tastes so much better. I mean, is there anything nicer than a Krispy Kreme donut just popping up to the top of the fryer? Or a thin crust pizza with a layer of cheese coming out of a brick oven, right? Without the oil, that donut is just a bagel. Without the oil, the pizza is just a tortilla, right? So we use fat as a flavor enhancer, but not by itself. We use fat to make carbs more tasty. So I like to say that as far as weight gain is concerned, carbs are the real culprits. As far as weight gain is concerned, carbs are the bank robbers. Fat drives the getaway car. You see? It facilitates the robbery. But if there is not a robber in the bank, the car doesn't matter. Which means if you take care of your carbs, the fat will take care of itself, because you never eat the fat without the carbs. We also use fat to make proteins better. You would rather have a well-marbled steak than London broil, right? But protein-fat combos are not as addictive as carb-fat combos. They are deadly. I don't want a steak 3 times a day for a month. I've done the experiment. I did Atkins. You can't do it. But if you give me pizza and donuts 3 times a day, I'll have it. So we clearly crave carbs. So let's talk about carbs. And I'm going to tell you a story. And the story concerns Fred Flintstone. You all know Fred? Right? So one morning Fred wakes up. You know Wilma, his wife? Yeah. He says, Fred, you've been lazier than usual. You haven't hunted in 2 weeks. We have no meat. Get me a deer now. And she gives you a nice breakfast of fruits and roots. So Fred is not hungry. And Fred is walking down the trail looking for deer tracks. And suddenly Fred runs across this tree that is absolutely laden with rich, red, ripe, sweet, juicy apples. You know what? Fred's going to stop. Because attractive food creates desire. And desire tickles the appetite center, not the hunger center. He ate breakfast. This is something else going on here. Now Fred's got to make a choice. Fred can either say, I'm going to climb the tree and I'm going to get me some apples. Alfred can say, you know what, Wilma looked really ticked off this morning, I better get that cake. But the point is, Fred has a choice. And the next few sentences are the most important sentences of this talk. There is no question that we are programmed to find high-calorie carbs attractive. But for most of our existence, the only such carbs available to us were natural carbs. And with natural foods, it is possible to maintain a balance between attraction and restraint. I love apples, but I won't kill you for an apple. I'll kill you for pizza, you understand? I love apples, but I won't kill you for an apple. You see, so if I'm walking towards an apple tree, and a big, mean-looking bear walks between me and the tree, and is standing and growling at me, I look at the bear, I look at the tree, I'll say, that ain't worth it, I'll walk away. But if it's a pizza tree, I'm going to find a way around the bear. You understand? Okay? So, with natural foods, I can maintain a balance between attraction and restraint. But what happens if from this apple, I extract what I love the most, which is the sweetness and the starch, and I find me some butter and some flour, and I make me some apple pie. Now you're talking. Now we have what I call the cocaine effect. Okay? Which part of the world, folks, does cocaine come from? Anyone? Come on. South America, right? What have South American natives done with coca leaves for thousands of years? They chew it. They keep a little plug between their cheek and their gum. Every day, all day, they chew coca leaves. They do not become cocaine addicts. Do you know why? Because the concentration of cocaine in coca leaves is very low. It's below the threshold of addictivity. But if I take a big pile of coca leaves, and from that I extract what I love the most, which is cocaine, and I concentrate that down into a little crystal of crack cocaine, suddenly it's highly addictive. Apple pie is crack cocaine. Apple pie is an example of what I call designer foods. Designer foods are foods that are immensely more tasty than the components from which they are made. For most of our history as humans, we ate the components. But now we have become too smart for our own good, and we can extract from natural foods the tastes, the textures, the aromas that we love the most, and concentrate them down and make foods that are so tasty that nature can't match it. You understand that? And that is a problem, because these foods are so tasty, they are so attractive, that it is no longer possible to maintain a balance between attraction and restraint. Attraction overwhelms restraint. Okay? So when I eat apple pie, I usually have a dollop of ice cream on top when I do that. So when I eat an apple pie, my pleasure center says, what in heck was that? That was good. You got more food like that? Of course. We always have designer food around us, right? So I eat more and more because of the great attractiveness of these foods, because of the cocaine effect of these foods. Desire, which is normal and helped us put on a little fat in the summer to survive the winter, that desire rises to a state that has some similarities to drug addiction. Now, it is not identical. Drug addiction has 7 behaviors. I won't go into that. Food only seems to have 4, perhaps 5. So Dr. Karen Smith and I, who do this research, more and more, even though in the literature they're calling it drug addiction, we don't call it that. We call it failure of self-regulation. And there are many of you in this room who would agree with me that designer foods do cause a failure of self-regulation, right? Yeah, it causes it. And this failure of self-regulation, just like a true addiction, takes away the ability to make choices. Because we can't maintain a balance, can't make choices. You know, I mean, I've driven down Broadway to UTMB since 1979. Almost since day one, there was this pink building around 22nd called the Donut Palace. Right? And I'd be driving to work at 7:30, minding my own business, listening to the radio, and my car would make a sharp right turn. You know, I know you guys are laughing in sympathy. You've been there. Yeah. So we can't make choices. Unfortunately, all diets demand choices. That's why diets tend to fail, right? So when I eat designer foods over and over again, my desire goes up, they're tasty. And then the next step occurs, cravings. And I say, you know what, if I eat some more of these foods, maybe perhaps my cravings will be satisfied. So I eat some more. Are they satisfied? No. Desire goes up some more. That's the nature of desire. So I eat some more, desire goes up again. The problem is that with each increase in desire, my self-control goes up. Now don't lie to me. How many of you have stood in front of a fridge knowing there's a piece of cake or pie or some ice cream in there, and your hand goes in to get it, even as your mind is saying, please don't do this. Any of you done that? Why can't you stop that hand? So healthy eating and weight management is not a question of information. It's not a question of food lists. We all have that food list, either visibly or in our mind. It is the dang hand that betrays us, okay? So when you have a high level of desire and you think of something attractive, you want it now. So what are the steps in this failure of self-regulation? This is a diagram. I gave Dr. Smith credit. We both made it together. So the way we look at it is, food has power over us. More power over some of us than others, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But food does have power. It has the power to call out to us. Now, not all foods call out to us the same way. On the one hand, this side, we have broccoli and asparagus and skinless baked chicken breast. Not my favorite foods, but if I'm hungry enough, I'll eat. I have to be hungry. On the other side, I have Honeycrisp apples and seedless grapes and watermelon, stuff like that. Those I'll eat even if I'm not hungry, right? If somebody puts in front of you, you take a few. That's desire. And that's okay. So far I'm okay. But with designer foods, this power to attract us rises tremendously, exponentially. And these foods are so attractive that they generate cravings. Now once you start craving anything, you have this internal fight, right? And then more often than not, your cravings overcome your inhibitions. And once that happens, you're going to eat. Failure of self-regulation. It's all caused by that. No designer foods, no failure of self-regulation. No designer foods, no obesity. You cannot get fat eating natural food. It can't be done. It just can't be done. Okay? Also, not everyone is equally susceptible to the power of food. Just like any addictive substance, you have to have a genetic makeup that makes you addictive. About 2/3 of us seem to have the genetic background to be food addictable. About 1/3 don't. Okay? And it's not black and white, there are degrees. But 1/3 of us don't. People who are not food addictable find it easier, I didn't say easy, find it easier to maintain a normal weight. But everybody has to work, to keep a normal weight in today's food environment, everybody has to work at it. But people to whom food doesn't talk find it easier. Okay? Now, and do you know how to decide? If everyone in this room, if I have you for a month, I can tell you who's food addictable and to whom food does not talk. I will put you under chronic stress for 1 month. About 1/3 of you will lose weight, about 2/3 of you will gain weight. People to whom food does not talk, when they are stressed, they forget to eat. You all know people who lose weight when they are stressed, right? The rest of us, when we are stressed out, we use food as a crutch. We call it comfort food. Right? So those of you in this room to whom food doesn't talk and who are not quite sure what I'm talking about because it doesn't apply to you. You guys are thin and beautiful and I admire you and I respect you and I envy you. But for the next few minutes I'm going to ignore you and I'm going to talk to the rest of us. A lot of the information about weight management in this country, I've come to the conclusion, is put out by people who have never been fat. Okay? They think, and we think, that they are normal weight because they are doing something right and we are doing something wrong. But it's not that. Food doesn't talk to them the same way. And for them, diet and exercise works because their hand never betrays them. You understand that? We are different. So we have to be always cognizant of the fact that in us, designer foods, and only designer foods, are capable of causing failure of self-regulation. We have to be careful. Am I making sense to some of you? Yeah, we have to be careful of that. Okay? Now, the good side is those of us who tend to get fat, remember, there's nothing wrong with us. We are the successes of nature. Right? A few thousand years ago, those who put on fat in the summer survived the winter. Those who didn't. You understand that? Okay? We are just living a few thousand years too late. That is our problem. Yeah. So a failure of self-regulation caused by freely available, highly tasty, high-calorie designer foods is a major contributor to the initial weight gain. Now, I don't have time to tell you how to de-addict, except to tell you that food addiction is not quite the same as drug addiction. Drug addiction is addiction to a specific chemical, and the chemical grabs your desired mechanism and it won't let go. So de-addiction is hard. Food addiction is not addiction to a chemical. You might like salty food, but you don't eat salt. You might like sweet food, but you don't eat sugar. It's the addiction to a taste, a combination of taste. And I've been doing this with groups of people for the last 6-7 years, and what we find is de-addiction from food is not hard. If you eat closer to nature, if you eat the apple instead of the apple pie, it doesn't take but a few days for those cravings to go away. What do I mean by cravings to go away? When I walked into this room, those cookies didn't even talk to me, and I'm serious. Okay? Periodically, I get re-addicted when I'm going through a tough time in my life and I don't eat right. But then a few days of eating correctly, you're de-addicted. If you're de-addicted, you can walk into La Madeleine and the stuff behind the glass won't even look at you. Okay? You can walk into a restaurant and you'll order the salad instead of the cheeseburger and fries. I've been on both sides, so I know. Okay? If you eat correctly, you will become de-addicted. We'll talk a little more about this at the end of the talk. So that's the weight gain. Now let's talk about the weight regain. Okay? So this study was published 20 years ago, and the investigators recruited 25 overweight and obese ladies from the community using a newspaper advertisement, and they helped them to lose at least 10% of their body weight fairly quickly. Then they sent them home and said goodbye. And once a year, they called them back and weighed them. And they found that within about 4.5 years, they had regained every pound that they had lost. We've all been there, haven't we? Okay? This is the natural course of weight loss, especially rapid weight loss. See, when someone goes on a diet, theoretically, as long as you stay on the diet, you should keep losing weight. But that's not what happens. When you go on a diet, initially you lose weight, and then you hit that dreaded plateau, right? Well, and then you know what happens? That's happening. Weight starts going up again. Why does the weight start going up again? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is you fall off the wagon, failure of self-regulation. See, when you start a diet and you get on the scale every morning, you've lost 2 pounds and 3 pounds or whatever, you feel good. You have the willpower to eat right. And then a couple, 3 weeks pass, and you get on the scale, you lost 1/4 pound. The next day, nothing. Now you say, I'm working at this, and nothing is happening. And little by little, that willpower begins to seep away. And non-regulation foods come back into your menu, and before you know, you're addicted again, and the weight starts going. That's when, clearly that happens. It takes one to know one, and I know. Okay? But there's more. We now know that weight loss, especially rapid weight loss, causes metabolic and hormonal responses in the body that encourage weight regain. Let's explore those for just a minute. Okay? You all know the show called America's Biggest Loser? So they take a bunch of people who are very, very obese, and they lock them up in a ranch, I guess, and they, and then they exercise the crap out of them. 4 to 6 hours a day, and they put them on a starvation diet, very tight diet. And they lose tons of weight. 30 pounds in the first week, things like that, tons of weight. Well, these investigators took one group from 1 year. This was published in 2012, so maybe a 2010 or 2011 group. And they looked at what happens to their metabolism when they lose weight this quickly. Okay? Now, your metabolic rate is the number of calories that you spend in a day. 3/4 of the calories that we spend just to stay alive. So suppose I'm using 2,000 a day. I'm probably using more than that, but let's keep our math simple. Suppose I'm using 2,000 a day. If I lay in bed all day long without moving a muscle, I will still use 1,500. And then, but I don't do that, not on most days. And so I get up and I walk and I do my stuff. I only use 500 calories for that. That doesn't sound like a lot. But remember, walking or running a mile only use 100 calories. So 500 calories goes a long way. So the first is called the basal metabolic rate. That's your staying alive calories. There's a song like that, right? Yeah, that's the song you do CPR to, staying alive. No. Okay. That's your staying alive calories. And then the rest is your activity calories. So when these guys got to the ranch, the average basal metabolic rate, because these are big guys, was about 2,900 calories. Okay. At 6 weeks, this had fallen to about 2,300 calories. And by 30 weeks, it was down to about 1,900 to 2,000 calories. The body adapts. If you don't have enough food, the body learns how to live on less. And it changes you from a Hummer to a Prius. Okay? But of course, these guys were not laying in bed. They were being whipped into shape, right? And even from day one, if you look at their accounts, they are made to exercise 4 to 6 hours a day. Now in the beginning, they are heavy and they can't exercise very much, but they still make them exercise. So if you take the basal plus the exercise, it's about 3,600 calories, something like that. As the weeks go by, they lose weight, their muscles develop, and they can exercise more. And so the basal plus exercise actually goes up, which is wonderful. That's at week 6. But then the body says, oh, I can handle this. It begins to go down. And even though they keep exercising just as much, the body can do that much exercise with less calories being used. If you take two guys, both of whom weigh 200 pounds, one always weighed 200 pounds, one used to weigh 250 and quickly lost 50 pounds, and you make them walk a mile, the guy who recently lost the weight will use fewer calories walking the mile than the guy who was never heavy at the beginning. Okay? So if you look at week 30, in spite of exercising 6 hours a day, their total calorie expenditure is not that much higher than their basal was when they came. Like they're laying in bed. You see? And the problem is, once the metabolic rate is down, it stays down for a long time. The body says, fool me once. As studies are showing, it may stay down for 2 to 3 years. It doesn't come back up that fast, you see. It doesn't mean that it stays all the way down. I'm sure it begins to creep up. But to get back to baseline takes a long time. So now what happens to hunger? Now this is a complicated slide. Just look at the areas that I've outlined in red, okay? So this one shows the drop in the metabolic rate, okay? As the metabolic rate goes down, the hunger goes up. So if you're dropping weight fast, crash diet, fast diet, the body protects you on the one hand by helping you to live on fewer calories, on the other hand, making you hungry. So you go find, ultimately hunger breaks through and you will eat. And you will eat. Okay, now that's the metabolism. What about the hormones? There's a very nice study, came in New England Journal 3-4 years ago. So the investigators took 50 overweight or obese individuals and put them on a crash diet for 10 weeks. Okay? And by 8 to 10 weeks, these people had lost 10% of their body weight or more. That's quite a bit. Then this was in the CRC, it was in the hospital. Then they sent them home and they helped them try to keep the weight off. But of course, you know what happened. Those who stayed on the program, came for every follow-up visit, even they by the end of a year had regained half the weight they had lost. And those who were not as meticulous had regained 70% of the weight they had lost. So 1 year, now what they did was, they, in addition to everything else, they looked at hormones. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but among others, they looked at ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, And there are certain hormones that give us satiety, a feeling of fullness. And I'm not going to name them, but they looked at those too. And the way they would look at them is, as the baseline, they gave them a test meal and saw how much the ghrelin went down and how much the satisfaction hormones went up after eating. 1 year later, 1 year after the initial weight loss, in the hours following a meal, their hunger hormone levels still were going down less than at baseline and coming up more quickly. I'll explain what that means. And their satisfaction hormone levels were coming up less and going down faster. What it means was, even a year later, after a meal, they felt less full after a meal and became hungrier again sooner. This is a year later. So those hormonal changes persisted. Okay? So in summary, a large and rapid weight loss leads to a slowing of the metabolism and hormonal responses that encourage you to eat more. Both of these probably, possibly, contribute to the weight regain. So, how should we lose weight? The last word on that clearly has not been spoken. My ideas change as new research comes out. What I'm giving you is the best that we have at this point in time. Now the thing is this. When we go on a diet, the natural tendency is to try and lose as much weight as possible as quickly as possible, right? That's what makes you feel good. Yeah. You may say I'm trying to do it slowly, but believe me, deep down you want to lose that weight. And you want to lose it quick. You want to see that scale move, right? Don't lie to me. There's lightning out there. So, okay. But when we do that, now we know this experiment has been done dozens of times. Okay, this is what happens. So this is your baseline, and you lose a ton of weight in 2-3 months. Okay? 20% of you probably will be able to keep that weight off. 20%. But in 80%, this is what's going to happen. At some point, you're going to start regaining. And at some point, whether a year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you'll come back to baseline. But that's not all, folks. Because these metabolic and hormonal changes last for a long time, because your metabolism stays low for a long time, at that point in time, your metabolic rate is still low. So if you start eating like you ate before you went on the diet, guess what? You're using fewer calories now. Guess what happens to your weight? It goes past the baseline. You've all been there too. So we call this the yo-yo phenomenon, except the yo-yo doesn't yo-yo like this. It yo-yos upwards. And this is the reason. Okay? So even though our tendency is to try and lose as much weight as possible, as quickly as possible, we don't need to. We now know, beyond doubt, that a small weight loss of 5 to 10% provides a large medical benefit. If a manufacturer comes out with a weight loss drug, they only have to prove to the FDA that it causes a 5% weight loss. And the reason the FDA lets them get by with 5%, because there's data that the 5% weight loss makes a huge difference in your sugar level, in your blood pressure, in your A1C. You don't need to lose much weight to get the medical benefits of weight loss. Medical weight loss has nothing to do with cosmetic weight loss. With cosmetic weight loss, there is no end. Okay? Then you end up looking like Cher. No, that is... All right? Medical weight loss requires a small weight loss which you can sustain. Okay? So, let's say that we are aiming for a 7% weight loss, which is a reasonable weight loss. Now, in my own program, people who have a BMI of more than 35, I actually recommend at least a 10 to 15% weight loss, but only up to 10% is medical. The 10 to 15 is to get some weight off of their joints, their hips and knees and ankles. But the medical part, 10% weight loss is plenty. 5 to 10 will do it actually. So, suppose my goal is a 7% weight loss, and I diet conventionally, where I try to lose a lot of weight quickly. At 1 year, I'm at 7%. So if someone saw me at that point, they'll say, you've reached your goal. You're at 7% at 1 year. They don't know the backstory, right? The backstory is I lost 15% at 3 months, and I'm regaining. And you know what's going to happen? As time goes by, I'm going to go 7%, 5%, 3%, 2%. I might end up at plus 1 to 3%, right? That we have done over and over again. We still keep doing it, but that's what we have done. So, suppose I take a different outlook. Suppose I say, I'm going to lose weight slowly. All right? So that at 1 year, I hit 7%. Now, at 3 months, the hare was ahead, right? But at 12 months, the tortoise has caught up with the hare. I'm still at 7% weight loss, but, and to be honest with you, I try not to say anything that's not proven. We don't know whether a gradual weight loss will have less effect on our metabolism and hormones than a crash weight loss, but instinct tells me that it will. Because ultimately, the body just wants to protect you. And when you start losing 30 pounds in 3 months, it freaks out, it thinks you're going to die. Right? And so, really and truly, I have come to believe that the slower the weight loss, the less changes there will be in your body. Nobody gains 30 pounds in 3 months. Why do you think you can lose 30 pounds in 3 months with nothing happening? Right? The other thing is, not only has the tortoise caught up with the hare, but if you extend this forward, my thinking is you're more likely to keep the weight off. You see? So this might be more effective if you've tried this, maybe you should try that. I used to weigh quite a bit more than I am today. I had lost a lot of weight. The last year and a half were tough with me, some family issues with my dad passing away, my mom being ill. So I've gained some back. But this time, I'm doing this. I refuse to go on a diet as such, okay? So this is how we've been trained to think about obesity. If somebody is obese, they eat healthy, they lose weight, the health gets better. We know that. That's not the full story. A number of studies have come out in the last 2 or 3 years that have shown that this is the true story. If somebody is obese, they eat healthy, the health gets better. Even before there's weight loss. And they lose weight, health gets better. Okay? But healthy eating is a goal in itself. Healthy eating is a goal in itself. And also, what you eat is at least to some extent under your control. How much weight you lose is not, because you don't know how your body is going to react. But we pin our hopes on something over which we have no control. Okay? So in most of the popular diets, the focus is on weight loss. But if you do what I now call the low-slow weight loss, on the low-slow strategy, the focus is on healthy eating. Weight loss is just a secondary benefit. So in a regular diet, you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, and you go to the bathroom, then you take your clothes off and you jump on the scale. You look down, and if you lost weight, you're happy, and if you haven't, you're not. In a low-slow strategy, which is focusing on eating instead of weight, when you wake up in the morning, even before you get out of bed, if you can say to yourself, I ate correctly yesterday, and I have a plan to eat correctly today, you have won already. You have won. When you get on the scale, you're just curious to see how much weight your body decided to lose. It's got nothing to do with you. You did your part. And the low-slow strategy, I don't even weigh myself every day. I weigh every few days is plenty. Yes, as long as you're trickling downward slowly, that's all that matters. Okay? So, we are almost done. We are on time. In this brief talk, obviously, I can't give you a big plan as to how to eat healthy. But I'd like to let you go with a few three little tips on healthy eating. Anybody can do this. Okay? By the way, I'm not even going to talk about cookies and donuts and cakes. Those you guys handle on your own. Right? I'm talking about eating. If you can say to yourself, when I eat out, I will have no bread. And bread comes in many forms. If you can walk, now you got to say this to yourself before you walk into the restaurant or before you walk into the cafeteria. Because once you're sitting down and they put the crusty bread and butter in front of you, you're sunk. You're done for. If you can say to yourself, I'm not going to have any bread. I'm telling you, it'll make a humongous difference. Because processed white carbs is what's killing us. Really is. More than sugar is the white carbs. Okay? Sugar too, but really. The second tip, one of my daily meals will be 75% fruits and vegetables. Only one. I mean, the salad today was perfect. Okay? But, this is what I'm asking you to eat. It's not deprivation. Make a nice salad. Make sure there's some fruit in it. Okay? Now, if I eat only veggies, I get hungry again very quickly. So I've left you 25% to put beans and cheese and meat. And it doesn't have to be a salad. You can grill your veggies, you can broil your veggies, you can steam your veggies, I don't care. Don't kill them. Just torture them a little. Make sure there's some crunch left in them, some color and crunch. If one of your meals looks like that, and there's a rule that goes with that meal, and the rule is no bread. If you put no bread, there's a reason. If you put no bread, you can put dressing, real good dressing. Fat without carbs. I'm not going to go to the mechanisms, but fat without carbs ain't going to make you fat. Remember, you all lose weight on Atkins, right? There's a lot of fat in Atkins, but no carbs. But the moment you start eating bread and you get that surge of insulin, then the fat is going to hurt you. It takes insulin really to make the fat hurt you. Okay? So make a nice salad or make some veggies, You can have a bunch of grilled veggies and a small steak, and that's fine. But the star of the show, one meal a day, veggies and fruits. I'm telling you. In my other daily meal, starch will cover no more than a third of the plate. What that means is, this is your real meal, not your salad, your food, right? So you have your meat, and you have your veggies, right? Your meat and your veggies. And the starch, I don't care what the starch is. I don't care. As long as it's not more than a third. Because you really haven't had any of the starch. You may just have it okay. Alright? There's a rule with this too, and the rule is a 15-minute rule. Then I won't take a second helping for 15 minutes. That's it. If you can do these three things, my guess is 80% of you will slowly lose weight. Slowly lose weight. Okay? Stay away from the donut palace too. Those of you who have done my program know that I actually encourage cheating once a week. Because if I can never have ice cream again, what's the point of living, right? I mean, really, let's get real. This is not a diet. This is something you can do year after year, okay? So, to summarize, when I eat out, I will have no bread. It's up to you. You can do it, but you got to make the choice before you walk into the restaurant. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. One of my meals will be mostly fruits and veggies. Nice dressing, beans, meat, cheese, no bread. And the other meal, starch will not be more than a third of a plate. That's simple enough, and you can do that. And so I'm going to leave you, and we are on time. I'm going to leave you with a little story. Many years ago, I was at the graduation ceremony for one of my son's high school, and the valedictorian was giving his talk. Now, valedictorian speeches are full of highfalutin ideas, right? Go out and change the world, things like that. So this young man said, I would rather aim high, this is my Texas accent coming in, I would rather aim high and miss the mark than aim low and hit the mark. I would rather aim high and miss the mark than aim low and hit the mark. And I said, well, that's impressive. Then I got to thinking, and I said, in weight management, no. That's wrong. We aim too high. I'm going to lose 30 pounds in the next 6 months. Now, if you set the mark, and if you can do it, more power to you. But for many of us, we have found, in the long run, that doesn't work. So I'm going to leave you with a thought to consider. And the thought is this. If I have aimed high and missed the mark, let me aim low and hit the mark. You see? And maybe that's a more effective strategy for many of us. Thank you. Questions? Stop the dog. I call this stop the dog. Now what? Yes, ma'am.
My coworker has been very successful on your program. I just wanted to find out more about it.
Yes. The question was, one of our co-workers has done my program, has done well, and what do you do if you want to do my program? Well, there's a couple of ways to do that. If a big bunch of you get around to Mr. Cleveland, he can help you set one up. But the other thing is, I now have a book out Oh, it's called Don't Take Dieting Advice from a Skinny Person. That is the name of the book. Okay? But if you put my name on Amazon, you'll get the book. Okay? And I'm always willing to do individuals and small groups. So if you get a group together and talk to me, I'll come and do the workshop.
I have a wellness champion for our school, and I'm sure we have several that want.
If you have several people, I don't do as many workshops as I used to. I travel a lot. I talk around the country a lot. But for certain specific groups, I will find the time and I will do it. Okay. Any other questions? That's it?
Right there.
Yes, sir. Low fat diet or low carb diet? Is that the question? Okay, the question is low fat diet or low carb diet? There is no such thing as a low carb diet. That doesn't mean anything. Okay? When you talk about carbs, you have to talk about the glycemic index of the carbs. Natural carbs, low glycemic index; processed carbs, high glycemic index. When Atkins is an example of a high-fat diet. You all know that, right? Lots of fat, lots of protein. The problem with Atkins is, it causes a very quick weight loss, which probably means it makes a lot of, it suppresses your metabolic rate quite a bit. And number two, when you fall off the wagon with Atkins, you are going to gain weight so fast, it's going to make your head spin. Many of us have been there. And number three, Atkins diet, if you're going to go on Atkins, you're going to be eating a lot of eggs and cheese and meat and milk. All right? Much of the eggs and cheese, not much, all of the eggs and cheese and meat and milk we get today come from animals fed corn, not grass. And these eggs and cheese and meat and milk are probably a little higher than omega-6 fatty acids than they need to be. And studies have shown that people who go on Atkins diet, even though they lose weight very quickly, their markers of systemic inflammation begin to rise. So I'm not in big favor of an Atkins type diet right now. Now, when you talk about a low-fat diet, which is anti-Atkins, okay, that means you're going to eat mostly, carbs and protein. In the old days, when they put people on low-fat diet, they didn't specify the type of carb these people were eating. They were saying so many calories from carb. Well, 200 calories from 2 slices of bread is very different than 200 calories from an apple. Because one is low glycemic, one is not. So I am a believer in a moderate fat, low glycemic carb diet. That you eat some fat, you got to eat some fat. Otherwise you're not going to stay on the diet. But the carbs that you eat should be as natural as possible, because natural carbs have fiber, and fiber keeps the glycemic index low. Obesity is not a deficiency disease. It's not a disease of excess. Obesity is not a disease of excess. Obesity is a deficiency disease. You know what the deficiency is? Fiber. Fiber in our food. We take the fiber out of the food to make processed carbs, and they'll make you fat. Natural carbs will not make you fat. That sort of answer your question? Okay? Somebody had, I'll talk to you. Yeah, go ahead.
What about what we drink? Our Diet Cokes?
What do you think God intended for you to drink? We can argue, you can argue all you want. All you want. We don't need high oxygen water. We don't need vitamin water. We don't need antioxidant water. We just need God's water. Now, anything you do other than water is on you. So I cannot really say, because Diet Coke, for example, Diet Coke. Diet Coke is more addictive than any drink I know. I have a hard time getting people off Diet Coke. I don't know what it is about Diet Coke. It's very addictive. It's not supposed to be. As far as I know, they took cocaine out of Coca-Cola 100 years ago. It used to have, if you have cocaine, that's what's called Coca-Cola. No, really, I'm not giving you a funny answer, but water is what we are supposed to drink. If anything else you drink, it's up to you. If you want to put some lemon juice in the water, I don't have it. If you want to drink some unsweetened iced tea, I don't have a problem. But once you start putting sugar substitutes and things like that, that's a whole different talk. There was a question here as to what my program consists of. Basically, my program initially teaches you. We spend 3 hours teaching you all kinds of stuff. Then we make you an apprentice. An apprentice is someone who's trained in a skill. And the 2-week apprenticeship is in low glycemic cooking and low glycemic eating. And then after that you set up your own shop and learn to cook low glycemic on your own, and we help you keep doing that. Okay?
Question. You were talking about the diet, how we feel good when we eat certain food.
Mm-hmm.
When you start changing your diet, how do you keep getting that sensation of feeling good with food that's different from what you're used to?
Right.
The emotional stability.
Right. So the question was that when we eat donuts and cake, we feel good. You know, if we don't, how can we feel just as good eating something proper? The first question is, you won't need to. See, there are 2 levels of doing something. One is, I like it. You know, people who like to run, that's fine. And that's where tasty natural foods. At some point, I like it changes into I need it. That's an addiction. There are people, if they don't run 3 miles or 5 miles every day, they feel terrible. They're addicted. Okay? So my answer to you is, once you start eating right, the need for getting that kick goes away. Okay? And natural foods are tasty enough that you feel good. Honest to goodness, 10 years ago, my wife had to horsewhip me to make me eat a salad. Okay? I love salad. I can taste them. What happens is, once you stop eating all this junk, your taste buds reawaken and you start tasting stuff that you hadn't tasted in years. So the answer is not how you get the same feeling. My answer is you don't need to get the same feeling. All right? Yes, ma'am?
Last question.
What about supplements, vitamins? When
Right.
and how should you take
Right.
them?
Question is, what about supplements? When I do any of these talks, I carry 2 boxes with me. I call one my science box and I call one my soap box. You understand the difference? If I'm on this box, I'm talking science. And so far I was on this box. I'm now going to move to my soap box, which is where I give you opinions. Now they are informed opinions, but they are opinions. I want to be very clear. They are not backed by research, only by my thoughts. When I first got into this area, I was, and still am, a big proponent of eating healthy, natural foods, right? And I said, you know, if you eat natural foods, you don't need supplements. Then I got to thinking, you know, supplements and so on, vitamins and things like that, okay? When we were hunter-gatherers, clearly we had stress. But most of our stress, I think, was acute stress. So you've been chased by a bear, you either got eaten or you got away. Right? But now we have chronic stress. Chronic stress, right? Chronic stress is caused by 2 things. It's caused by possessions and it's caused by expectations. Think about it. It's possessions, and we have both. We have expectations, you know. We've got kids to raise, a house payment to make, car payment to make, right? And we have possessions, the house and the car that we need to keep. So we have chronic stress. Now when you have chronic stress, your metabolic rate rises because your heart rate is up a little bit more. Not much, maybe a beat a minute, but it's up. Right? Your blood pressure is up a little bit. You are like a car that's idling a little high. It's not going anywhere, but instead of idling at 1,000 RPM or whatever, it's idling at 1,200 RPM. A car that's idling at 1,200 RPM is going to need tune-ups faster because everything is getting dirtier faster. And because of chronic stress, since the metabolism is running faster, I've come to the conclusion that a few supplements here and there may not be a bad idea. Because we are just working hard, our bodies are working hard. I keep some vitamins on my bathroom shelf, and when I think about it, I pop one. I'm not religious about it. I take one once in a while. So my answer is, to the best of my thinking, not to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my thinking, a little supplementation now and then may not be a bad idea because of the lifestyle that we live. That's the best. And thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kaya. If everyone would please fill out an evaluation form, we would love it so we can make sure we're doing the right things for you. Remember the physical activity challenge, and we're to help you from a health promotion and wellness perspective. So we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Are you okay? Enough signs and enough.
Some of us did.
Excellent.
Hey!
How are you
I'm
doing?
doing well.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm from Germany, so I have a special addiction around bread and other starches.
Right.
I've read a little bit about rye bread, which I
Yes.
like a lot.
Yes.
That there are some potentially somewhat at least marginal benefits over wheat bread. I still know, I can't eat the whole loaf, so, but do you think there's something in it to that you feel like that's more than just internet web talk about it?
I'm
or-
going to talk to you.
Okay.
But before I do that, let me show you something. I'm a baker. Okay? So this is. Let me give you a picture here. So this is homemade bread.
Right?
Okay? Now the rye bread there are two kinds of bread.